fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to another episode of Sean's Movie Crusades. My name's Sean Wasserkrug, and today we are reviewing one of the most anticipated films of 2019, and that is Martin Scorsese's The Irishman. Now, for me, I like to think that I'm a big crime movie fan, but then when I go back and I look at what some of the best crime films are in terms of cinematic history, they aren't really movies that I really care about. I mean, like The Godfather, for instance. I can watch that. I see that it's a cinematic masterpiece for what it is. But is it a movie that I love or care about or relish in talking about? No, not at all. Same thing with Goodfellas. I know Goodfellas is a phenomenal film. I see the great in it, but it's not for me. It's not a movie that I enjoy watching. It's not a movie where I go, I have to watch that. It's more like I needed to see it once, now I did. Okay, I'm good. The only real crime film, personally, that I can think of off the top of the head that I really enjoy watching multiple times over is Scorsese's The Departed, because I like the actors, I like the characters, I like the story, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat throughout the whole film overall. Now, with this film, I mean, the level of anticipation for this movie coming out has been at a 10. It's 3.5 hours long. Yes, really, really long movie. But you have three iconic actors with Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci returning to roles that made them iconic, with Pesci being Goodfellas, and of course De Niro and Pacino being, Godfather. And then Scorsese using the de-aging technology that we've been starting to see, mainly through MCU films and Star Wars over the years, to know that Scorsese's trying to tell a story that spans 60-some years, for the most part. I mean, where we go from, because, I mean, the main, story, it's following one of the characters, and then the other two intertwine throughout the story, but we're seeing them in different parts of their life. Probably more like 40 years, actually, instead of 60 years, but using the de-aging technology as it is throughout. Plus, it's obviously a crime story. It falls around Jimmy Hoffa and stuff like that. So, with Scorsese at the helm, this is supposed to be his bread and butter. This is supposed to be his masterpiece, as we say, going into this. So, let's go ahead and jump in and see what I thought of The Irishman. Now, The Irishman, the general plot of The Irishman is that we follow pretty much the life of Robert De Niro's character, which is Frank Sheeran. He's a delivery driver of meat. He's a former he's a former vet. And then one day he gets the opportunity to have a couple of meat fall off a truck for the mob, which leads him to kind of open the door into this world. He falls into friendship with Russell Buffalino, played by Joe Pesci, and while working for them, kind of being their muscle, he's introduced to the legendary Jimmy Hoffa, played by Al Pacino, and a friendship grows between them. And so as we go throughout this film, we are watching basically through the years the story of the friendship and business between these three characters. We go through a bunch of things, such as the whole JFK assassination, the Nixon impeachments, the whole big trial on Hoffa done by Robert Kennedy, all the way up to not all the way up to the early 2000s. So we are going through a whole lot of time and information between these three characters, and that's basically the general plot of the film, is that you're just going through these last 40-so years between these three characters. Now, what works with The Irishman? I mean, obviously, you have standout performances between these three guys. You got Pesci, who, frankly, I haven't seen Pesci in a movie in quite a long time, and when Pesci did come on screen, I actually got excited. Now, Pesci, for me, he's always going to be Home Alone for me. But obviously, he's fantastic in Goodfellas. He was nominated for, or I think he might actually won for My Cousin Vinny. And then of course, but for me, he's always one of the wet bandits or sticky bandits from Home Alone. But to see Pesci on screen again was definitely something to enjoy, something to be happy about, because Joe Pesci's a very unique actor. He's a very enjoyable actor, and to watch him just on screen, whether he's being a mafia guy or just Joe Pesci being Joe Pesci, it was great watching him on screen again, and then watching his character go through the through the years. It was definitely a joy to watch him, and he's one of the highlights of the film for me. Pacino as Jimmy Hoffa, to me, is probably one of the standout, if not the standout role in the film. He does all of his Pacino-isms. Everyone who likes Pacino screaming, yelling, doing his ha-ha kind of thing, Pacino does it in numbers. But to see to see a guy who's just so gung-ho about his morals, about what he wants to do, knowing that he has all the power in his hands, and then starting to potentially see that slowly fall through his grasp, and kind of almost seeing him desperate, but his pride being so strong that it ends up becoming potentially his downfall or his rise, is a great visual, and it's a great view through Pacino's performance throughout this entire film. And then, of course, we got Robert De Niro, who plays Frank. We're seeing someone who, basically, like most people in a mafia movie, who usually is the main character, we're seeing De Niro break into the fold, kind of have to learn as he goes, take the opportunities to move up in the ranks, and when things start to go for them, instead of trying to overbound, but to respect it, and to show the respect to the people that got him to where he was. His loyalty to Hoffa and to Russell throughout this film matches no bounds that I've seen in many films. We see Frank going through everything, trying to kind of, even though he's the muscle, he's the guy that you send to basically go and kill someone or beat someone up. He's the glue, in a sense, that's trying to keep everyone together, especially in the later years when Hoffa and Russell and the rest of the mafia are at odds. Frank is the guy who's trying to just keep everyone together, keep everyone alive, and try to make them all remember the way it used to be and try to stay down that path. And De Niro does a great job of doing that. These three roles are definitely going to be considered for Oscar nominations when we get to Oscar season here in a few months. And they definitely go out of their way to put on a fantastic performance throughout these 3.5 hours. Martin Scorsese shoots a beautiful film. There's never a moment where I'm like, they could have shot that better, except for in one instance, which we'll get to. There are, like I said, it brings you into that crime world the way it was through the times, and they do a great job of showing you the brutality without it being too over the top gory. But the beauty of a director and a filmmaker such as Martin Scorsese, he does a fantastic job of shooting that. The score is fantastic as well. They have a great music going through it. But they do a great job with Scorsese and his, to me, 3 out of his 4 best actors that he's ever worked with, outside of Leonardo DiCaprio, coming together, and putting on a fantastic overall performance for this movie. Now, what does not work in this film? The runtime. It is 3.5 hours. It is very long. Now, if you're in a theater watching this, I feel even kind of more bad for you, because you can't pause this when you're watching it on Netflix like I was able to do. It's a very dry movie. Yes, there are moments where there are some exciting sequences and some very suspenseful moments in the film, especially in the later part of the film when a certain decision has to be made and seeing where it's going to go. But this movie is hindered by its runtime. Me watching it at home, watching it on Netflix, like most of you will have to do, I had a hard time trying to stay fully engaged with it. With a laptop and a phone and people coming in and out and stuff like that. This movie, as great as the performances are, as beautiful as it's shot, I had such a hard time staying fully engaged with this movie throughout because it's a very slow-paced and dry film. If you were to watch it, I would recommend watching it in parts instead of watching it all at once, because there's a lot of times throughout this movie where I was literally hitting pause so I could see exactly how much more I had left. And when it was like right at the hour mark, I was like, oh wow, I still have 2.5 hours left of this movie. And then again at the 2 hour mark, I have another hour and a half left of this movie. And then again at the 3 hour mark, okay, 30 more minutes. It wasn't that it's bad. It's just that it's so overly bloated. There's a lot in the movie that does not need to be in there. It could have taken a lot of stuff out. I get Scorsese. It's Netflix. He can do whatever the hell he wants, which he does. And he can put as much story he wants into this. But the timing and pacing of the film is all over the place. When it's exciting, it's exciting. When it's not, it's not. And you're just sitting there just kind of having to watch it. And it feels, it's a 3.5 hour movie that literally felt like a 4, 5, 6 hour movie that they could have taken a huge chunk out that I think would have made the movie stronger and potentially more enjoyable of an experience. So that was definitely one thing that hindered it. Now the big thing, de-aging. It works and it doesn't work. The first initial shot of Robert De Niro is horrendous. First off, they give Robert De Niro these ruby blue eyes, like super, super blue eyes that look unnatural. And then as the movie goes on, they're not as blue. And then another shot, they are really blue. It's just, they can't seem to get the eye color down for Robert De Niro. But the first initial shot is just like, holy crap, is he a White Walker? Because his eyes are so blue. And then the first interaction he has with Pesci, for the de-aging that they put him in that position, he actually looks fine. Even Pacino looks fine throughout the movie. Pesci looks fine in the movie. It's De Niro whose de-aging doesn't look quite right. His first interaction with Russell, a.k.a. Joe Pesci in this film, it's almost like he's scrunched up like this, his shoulders are up where he has no neck, and it's almost like, even though it's his mouth, that they put a bunch of clay on his lower jaw, and he can't really move his mouth like this, so he's talking, but his mouth's not really moving. And it's distracting as hell, and it looks not good at all. Now, fast forward 10-15 minutes later, after we've gotten past that, it looks fine. I'm watching him talk, he's actually being able to move his mouth properly, his shoulders are slunched down, and it actually starts to look like Robert De Niro. But that first, 10 minutes of young De Niro looks awful. There's also a scene where he's a soldier, and you can just tell by the way he's standing, it's like, that's not a 20-something-year-old man, that is a 60-something-year-old man trying to pretend to be 20. There's a scene where De Niro gets very violent towards another gentleman, and he's stomping on him, and you can tell that is not a 30-something-year-old man stomping a guy, that is a 65-year-old man who's trying his best not to lose his balance as he's trying to kick it. Once again, that's a director decision. You could have shot like an upward shot of De Niro stomping down on the person instead of showing De Niro completely trying to stomp, because it takes you a little bit out of the scene overall. But yeah, de-aging works on Pesci. It works on Pacino. The first 10-15 minutes, it does not work at all on De Niro, but then it does after that. So it's like almost either your eyes had to be trained on it and get used to it, or they figured something out and they just decided they didn't want to go back and fix the first part of it. So that is a huge kind of what the hell moment for me when this first started out. Now, the only other real negative is the cast. The cast is fantastic. There's a ton of great actors and actresses in this film, but ultimately aren't really used that much because the story is about these three gentlemen, Hoffa, Frank, and Russell. Anna Paquin, she plays Frank's older version of her daughter, of his daughter, Peggy. And she's basically hired to do this role to just basically look disconcerting and judgmental at De Niro throughout the entire film, and have maybe 1 or 2 lines of dialogue, and that's it. And it's just like, if you're gonna focus on her so much throughout this film, give her some lines. Because she doesn't talk. She literally has, I think, 1, maybe 4 words total in this film, but she's in at least 10, 15 minutes of this film, and she just looks off, just the whole time. It's just like, let her talk. You know, same thing goes with Jesse Plemons and Chucky O'Brien. He plays Jimmy Hoffa's adopted son. Now, he finally does get a scene to actually act in this movie, but he just kind of stands around and does nothing. Harvey Keitel, he plays Angelo Bruno. Outside of one scene, he's just basically sitting there just looking mysterious and kind of scary. It's just, you have all these great actors, and you ain't doing anything with them. And it's very frustrating. I'm like, oh, they got Harvey Keitel. Oh, they got Anna Paquin. Oh, they got Jesse Plemons. I love them. I can't wait to see what they do. And they do nothing in the movie. Ray Romano and Bobby Cannavale, they actually have stuff to do in the movie, at least in the first half, because Ray Romano plays Bill Buffalino. He's the attorney for basically the three. And I loved Ray Romano in the movie that we got him in. In the beginning of the film, he's the attorney. He tries to help Frank with legal situations. He helps Hoffa. And he's great. I love Romano and his parts. Obviously, he's not going to be a big character later in the films because once the court stuff kind of goes out of the equation, he's not an important factor. But they gave him enough to do. Bobby Cannavale, like I said, beginning of the film, he's given some stuff to do. He's got a few good scenes. I liked what he did. Obviously, his character's not important the rest of the way, so I get that. But Anna Paquin, Jesse Plemons, Harvey Keitel, and there's probably at least another 10 people I'm forgetting off the top of the head. They're just there for window dressing. They're there to look cool and be like, oh, that person's in this movie, but are ultimately wasted and not used. And in a 3.5-hour film, to not find anything for these people to do, to me, is not disrespectful, because I mean, obviously it's Scorsese, but it's just like a total waste. And for me, that's kind of the long and short of it when it comes to that. But ultimately, like I said, when it came to like The Godfather, I can tell I'm watching a masterpiece. I can tell I'm watching a phenomenal film, but it's not something that I necessarily care about. And ultimately, that's kind of what's going on with The Irishman. I'm watching 3 iconic actors put on amazing performances, but I just don't care. I never in this movie, up until maybe the last hour of the film, did I actually go, oh dang, I'm so interested in this film, I can't wait to see what happens. I'm just kind of watching just, okay, alright. It's just a very meh feeling. It's like, I get what Scorsese's doing. It's a great story. It's not for me. And I spend the whole time, 2.5+ hours watching this movie with no reactions, no emotional weight, no caring about these characters. Even though I'm watching them perform really, really well on screen, I just didn't care. I didn't care about the struggles that these 3 guys were going through. I didn't care how it was affecting their personal lives. I didn't care about any of it, because they never make you, to me, it's like watching a history documentary. You already know what's going to happen. You're watching it as it happens, but there's never a moment where it makes you go, I feel for this character. I can not see myself in the character, but I can relate or understand this character more to make me like these characters. These characters are not likable people. They're all bad people. So to not really have a character to root for, relate to, or care about makes it very hard for you to stay engaged throughout the entire film, even though you're watching a great film overall. And that, to me, that was the biggest problem with the movie, is that I watched 3.5 hours of a movie, And I just didn't care about what I was watching and who I was watching, even though I know I was watching something good. I just do not care about any of these characters and what was going on through their lives until we get to this one point in the film where I was like, okay, things are actually starting to get interesting for me. And then once it's over, you still have another 30 to 45 minutes left to film. You're like, okay, let's get through this. And ultimately, that's it when it comes to The Irishman. So overall thoughts going into The Irishman. Yes, it's a fantastically well done film by Martin Scorsese. You have 3 top-tier performances from Pesci, De Niro, Pacino. All deserve Oscar nominations for what they did. Scorsese definitely deserves a director nomination for what he did. But ultimately, the story and the usage of the rest of the cast that you hired on for this film are wasted and leave a lot to be desired in terms of trying to care or give a shit for what you're watching. It's overly long. The pacing's all over the place. The de-aging for the first 10 minutes on De Niro looks atrocious. But it's still a fantastically well-done film. I know that's counterproductive of what I'm saying. It's like, yeah, it's great, but it sucks. I liked it, but I didn't like it. I get that it's very confusing to understand. I hope people who do watch this, if you guys decide you do want to watch it, can kind of see where I'm coming from. I'm seeing people going, this is the magnum opus of Scorsese's career. This is the best film he's ever done. Da-da-da-da-da-da. No, it's not. I'm not even a huge Goodfellas fan, and Goodfellas is leaps and bounds better than this. The Departed is leaps and bounds better than this, in my opinion. Yes, it's a phenomenal performance by these 3 gentlemen and Scorsese behind the camera, but I don't see myself ever going back and rewatching this movie. I will watch Goodfellas, Godfathers, which I know that's Francis Ford Coppola, or The Departed 100 times over before I would go back to watch this movie again. A, because of how freaking long it is, and The Godfather is just as long. But The Godfather hooks me where this movie doesn't. So overall thoughts, do I recommend this movie? If you're a Scorsese fan, if you're a fan of these 3 actors, then yes, I highly recommend you watch this movie because you're going to want to see these great performances and you want to see Scorsese do what Scorsese does. If you're not a fan of any of those things, then no. I'll save you 3.5 hours and say don't watch The Irishman. Now, if you want to see what the whole big hubbub is about when it comes to Oscar season, stuff like that, then yeah, go ahead and check it out. But watch it in parts. Don't try to sit through this all 3.5 hours because you will regret it, I think, by the end of the film. Going to the overall score, like I said, personal opinion aside on how I feel about the movie, it is an astounding achievement led by 3 fantastic actors with a fantastic director through it. And because of that, even though it wasn't personally for me and I wasn't engaged, I do have to see the actual artistic side of this film and how it was done. So I have to give this review an 8.5 out of 10. It's a fantastic film. Is it in my top 10? God, no. It's not in my top 10. Is it something I would ever watch again? Probably not. Unless I had to watch it for like movie trivia purposes. But yes, it's an 8.5 out of 10 for what Scorsese and these 3 men do. It is. I have to commend them on that. It just wasn't for me. So an 8.5 out of 10 review score for The Irishman. So it does not crack into my top 10 of 2019. So going to the list remains the same. We still got Avengers Endgame at number 1, Jojo Rabbit at number 2, Ford v Ferrari at 3, Joker at 4, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood at 5, Parasite at 6, Knives Out at 7, Toy Story 4 at 8, Rocket Man at 9, with Doctor Sleep rounding out the top 10, with Peter Butter Falcon just outside of the top 10. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you guys did, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys feel like this review is worth sharing, go ahead and hit that share button. But most importantly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you stay all up to date with everything that pops up on Sean's Movie Crusades. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next week, there's not really any movies coming out per se, so there's probably not going to be any reviews unless I go and catch up on some stuff I have not seen this year, because there are some films that I probably should try to go and watch since I did not get to see them throughout the year. But the following week, December 13th, we've got 4 movies coming out. We've got Richard Jewell, which looks fantastic. We got Jumanji, The Next Level. We've got Uncut Gems, which some people are saying that Adam Sandler deserves an Oscar nomination for, which I have to see that to believe it. and the Fox News sex scandal film Bombshell. So yeah, and of course the week after that, Star Wars Episode 9: Rise of the Skywalker, which leads into, if you guys are looking for some video content to watch, the Movie Crusaders ride through the Star Wars galaxy is underway. We have just gotten through the prequel trilogy, and we are moving on to the original trilogy, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. The New Hope episode will be coming out next week, hopefully around Monday, maybe Tuesday, so be on the lookout for that, with the rest of them leading all the way up to Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. So if you guys want to watch us basically have fun, talk Star Wars, talk shit, do some great jokes. Our Revenge of the Sith video, easily one of my most favorite videos I've ever shot. Yes, it's long. Not as long as The Irishman, though. Definitely more enjoyable, in my eyes anyway. Definitely look out for that, and be on the lookout for more of the Star Wars videos that are popping up as we continue to ride through the episodic journey of the Star Wars films. But yeah, that's basically it we got here at Sean's Movie Crusades. Yes, today is Thanksgiving. I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. You guys watch some football, go Cowboys. You guys enjoy some great food, and be thankful for what you guys have. I'm thankful for the show. I'm thankful for all of you watching. Yeah, till next time. In case I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders. Happy Thanksgiving.